Hey, what's up, everyone? How you doing? It is me, Mr. 4K Upscaler. I think it's time for us to talk about the AMD Radeon 5700XT. And let's talk about a couple of things in two parts. First part, let's talk about the positives, and then we're going to talk about the negatives. So I saved the negatives for the last, and I will explain why. But let's talk about the positives of this card. Well, one of the biggest positives of this card is that it's affordable. Now, this is the anniversary edition. You don't have to purchase the anniversary edition. You don't have to spend $500. You can go with a 5700 XT, which is 450, or you can just go with your just standalone 5700, which is 350. So you are getting a really good deal right there. Now, that's the one benefit. It's the pricing of this graphics card. When you look at the market out there, when you look at NVIDIA, when you look at EVGA, when you look at Asus, all of these aftermarkets out there from NVIDIA, when you look at their pricing, when you look at what they're charging for 2070, for 2060, with the aftermarket, with this extra cooling and whatnot, you're looking at a lot of money. And you're kind of getting the same performance as you are going to be getting it here. So let's talk about performance. I have tested this card now. I have tested it with a bunch of games. The first game I tested it with was Formula One 2019. I was really blown away by the frames that I was getting on the Formula One 2019. Granted, I was using a dual resolution from two monitors, 25-inch each. That's a resolution of 3840 by 1080. I was getting 130, 134 to 128 frames per second for that racing game with all of the settings set to ultra. And that's pretty good to be able to get 134 to 128 frames per second on a ultra settings with a FreeSync 2 and 144 hertz monitor, which I have, which is the Samsung CHD 90. That's pretty awesome performance to be able to get that on the ultra wide screen, especially for those of you who are thinking about maybe using the ultra wide screen, and then you're wondering, can this card support that? Yes, this card can easily support Infinity, triple screen, double screen, or just ultra wide 32:9 screen, which I recommend. Honestly, it's your best choice. If you don't want to see the bezels, I think it's the best just to get yourself a 50-inch ultra wide Samsung or something lower price, maybe 34-inch ultra wide, and then you can set it up with your racing wheel, and I guarantee you're going to get some outstanding performance here that's going to go way above and beyond of 60 frames per second. You'll be going 130, 128 frames per second, and for racing, that's outstanding. So that's the one game that I tested it with. Even on a 4K resolution with Formula One 2019, I was able to get roughly about, with the ultra settings, close to 48 frames per second, which is not bad, but it's definitely not where it needs to be. Now, when you unselect the ultra settings and you bring the settings down to medium on 4K and medium settings, you are able to run the Formula One 2019 at 56 to 58 frames per second, and that's pretty good for a 4K. But let's face it, majority of you who's going to be purchasing this card, you're going to be playing that Formula One on the ultra wide monitors and with the racing wheels, because that's the best way to experience the game. But nonetheless, you can still do 4K at medium settings with a 58 to 57, worst case scenario 54 frames per second on the medium settings. But it never drops down below 50. It usually goes between 54 to 58, and that's pretty good in my opinion. I also tested the Gears 5 Tech versus Tech demo, and I was getting, on the medium settings, I was getting 64 frames per second on a 4K. And on a high settings, I was getting roughly 54 to 50 frames per second, but roughly 50 frames per second on 4K high settings. And that's pretty darn good too, with a single GPU with affordable price. So yeah, this is a very capable performance card for the 4K. It's not like super highly recommended 4K card. Of course, if you truly want to experience the 4K in its glory, ultra settings and 60 FPS, you're looking at either two of these Crossfire, or you're looking at probably 2080 Ti. That's what you're looking at if you want to have that steady 4K ultra goodness. But you're gonna have to cash out $1,500. Are you gonna spend that kind of cash just for the 4K at the ultra? I don't think so. This is cheaper, but you're getting also a pretty darn good performance at the 4K peak level. Now, those are the two games I've tested. I also tested a Metro Exodus. I was able to pull in on the Metro Exodus at 1440p, 100, and get ready for this, at 1440p medium settings with this card between 138 to 160 frames per second. Now, it's not always 160 FPS depending on which level in the game you are in, but in most case scenarios, it's always between 138 to 160. So that's a pretty good performance right there. Now, when you switch to a 4K, the things do change. At the medium settings, you're looking at roughly 50 to 53 frames per second on the medium settings. On the high settings, it drops down to 43 to 44. But it also depends on your CPU. You know, what type of CPU do you have? It really depends on these different types of rigs and the motherboards. If you have an MSI or Asus motherboard, it really depends on your rig as well. Okay, I was running an Intel Core i7 7800K, which is 3.8 gigahertz, 8 cores, and I was able to, pull in this kind of a performance. I have 32 gigs of DDR4 memory RAM by Kingston, and I mean, I'm happy with this performance. This is not something me complaining, and you don't hear me complaining. Why? Because with this price range, that's pretty darn good. Okay, you got to remember what you're paying. If this was a 2080 Ti and I was getting lousy 50 frames per second on high settings at 4K, then I would be very upset. Okay, but this is not 2080 Ti. This is not Titan X. Okay, this is Radeon 5700XT. So performance on this card, it's pretty darn good for the price. And RDNA, which is the Radeon Navi architecture, truly it's showing us what this architecture is capable of. And that's also good for the consoles, because I think consoles with their custom GPU, 7nm GPU and CPU, they'll be able to utilize really a 4K 60. I think with these new consoles, I'm confident that the AMD will be able to give us 4K 60. Not at every game, but those who are exclusively intended for, let's say, PlayStation 5 or Xbox Scarlet, I think we might see that. Third-party developers, it will be entirely up to them how they utilize the AMD. But since both PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Scarlet utilize the AMD, I think this will be a good news for both Xbox and the PlayStation fans, because now you have the same company building the GPU based on the same architecture, based on the same CPU, Zen 2 central processing unit chip. But anyway, we're not here to talk about the Xbox and PlayStation 5. It's still early for that. We'll talk about that in 2020 and beyond, God willing. Because you don't know what's going to happen between now and then. I don't have a crystal ball, but we're here to talk about this. So the positives, like I said, the pricing, performance, those are the two key things that are positive about this graphics card. You're getting a very affordable pricing here for this graphics card, and you're getting a really good performance. Okay, and it doesn't even eat too much of your wattage on your power supply. That's also a pretty good thing too. But let's just circle it this way. Pricing, very affordable, and the performance, it's pretty darn good for this card. And yes, you can do a VR, but you are going to have to sacrifice. You will have to tone down your graphics to medium settings. You'll have to turn off some filtering, some anti-aliasing, stuff like that. You will have to turn off that stuff. Now, let's talk about the ugly stuff. I saved the worst for the last. And what am I talking about? Now, some of you probably are ahead of the curve and you probably have heard about this. You probably know about this. One of the negatives about the AMD Radeon 5700, and this includes all of the 5700s, not just the XT, it's those two different models, three different models, I'm sorry. The Gold 50th, XT, and the standalone 5700. The one common issue is overheating. This card gets really warm, even when it's idle, even when you are not using any, video games, even if you're not playing any video games, even if you're not playing any games on your PC. It's just, even when it sits idle, just you're not even using it, it gets heat up. And that's the one issue, that's the one problem. It goes up to 92, 93 Celsius. Sometimes when I'm running certain games like Metro Exodus, it goes up to 97 Celsius. And I'm like, Jesus Christ. Sometimes the game will shut down. Your computer will shut down because it's trying to avoid any unnecessary overheating, burning up your GPU or your CPU. So that's not good. And that's the one problem with this Radeon 5700 XT. I would love to recommend it. I would love to say, hey, go ahead, go pick it up. But unless you have some really good cooling, like some super great cooling on your computer, like thermal cooling, or let's say, for example, you got like 8 to 9 to, let's say, 12 fans, and you got some really great cooling inside your rig. And your rig, it's very isolated and has an extra room to keep that cooling. Your rig's gonna have to be like a fridge. I'm telling you right now, if you wanna run this graphics card, you better have a fridge, like a refrigerator PC rig. You're gonna need a refrigerator PC rig, and I'm not exaggerating. You guys can go check out other, YouTube channels, and they're gonna tell you the same thing. They're gonna tell you that this thing gets fairly quickly overheated. And this is the common issue that always has happened with the AMD. And I don't understand why couldn't they create this Radeon 57 XT like they did with the Radeon 7, with the 3 fans, instead of using this plastic. I don't care. Here's the thing. I really don't care about the cosmetics. A lot of people out there are so concerned about the cosmetics of the graphics card. Dude, your graphics card will be inside a rig. It's not like you'll be looking at it. So who cares about the cosmetics of the graphics card? I care about, is it running good? Does it perform well? And can I keep it cool? Now, I also heard the news that there will be 5800s and 5900s coming later on this year with liquid cooling, thermal cooling, that's going to be in competition with 2080 Ti. But for right now, if you want to buy this card, if you want to go ahead and purchase this card, I'm telling you right now, guys, you're going to have to consider some sort of refrigerator type cooling on your rig. I don't care what kind of fan blades you use. Buy the biggest, the most badass fan blade, which I'm going to do, which I'm going to purchase. I'm going to get really awesome fans that I'm going to install on my computer. And I'm going to make sure that the fans are more concentrated on this GPU to keep it cool. I'm also thinking about using 850 watt power supply so I can power all those fan blades surrounding the graphics card. So that's the negative. Now, having said that, the reason I say I can't recommend it, because I think you're better off waiting to see what the Sapphire is going to do, what the aftermarket's going to do. Wait for the Sapphire, see what the Sapphire is going to do. If the Sapphire is going to be bringing some better, more awesome cooling, then go with that. But if not, then just wait for the, like I said, wait till some other third party out there does it. Third parties out there, and then wait for them to bring you a more better cooling on the graphics card. Now, liquid cooling is not that great either. Liquid cooling has its issues as well with the power supply. It needs more power. So my honest opinion, what they should have done, they should have created this 57XT with 3 fans. They should have made it exactly like Radeon 7, and use the same exact aluminum, chassis with those 3 different fans. I think if they did that, we would have a much better cooling. So, well, there you have it, guys. Like I said, it's a good card for the performance. It's a good card for the price range, but you'll just have to deal with the fact that this thing will get hot. This card will get hot. Now, EVGA and NVIDIA, granted, EVGA, especially NVIDIA, they have a much better aftermarket out there. They got EVGA, which is really great with their cooling. They've got Kingpin, they got Asus, they got MSI, Sapphire. They got a lot of different options out there for you in terms of how you would like to keep your card cool. As far as an AMD right now with this one, if you're gonna go with this version, just be ready for this card to be hot. Now, if you have a great cooling in your rig, then I think you're gonna be okay. I think you're gonna be okay, but you gotta make sure that if you're gonna use air cooling, you better make sure that your rig has like 24 cooling fan blades out there running and keeping that rig cool as fridge. So you gotta make sure that your rig, it's like a refrigerator. I'm not kidding. You're gonna need a refrigerator for your PC rig with this card. Like I said, even if I'm idle, even if I'm not doing anything, I'm just browsing for no reason, this thing's getting hot like a barbecue for no reason, like a barbecue rack. And that's not good. That's not good. I'm just trying to be honest with you guys. Now, if you want to give it a try, try it out, see how it goes for you. Remember, you can always rent. You can rent the graphics card. You don't have to buy them. That's another good option too. But there is a contract deal you have to sign. Okay, just to kind of keep that out there. But look, bottom line is this. I'm just here trying to give you an honest assessment of this card. And my honest assessment is it's good, but this ugly negative that it has, which is a big problem, big problem, and it gets really hot. And when you have that big problem for the card to get so hot, that's not good. So I hope this helps you out. I hope this gives you some idea. And like I said, I'm just trying to be honest here with you. You know I have the graphics card, so I have no reason to lie. I'm just trying to let you know that the card definitely gets hot. And there's a way to work around this, granted, but you're gonna have to spend some money to get better cooling inside your rig. And if you have a really great cooling on your rig, like a really great cooling that can keep this card at 72 to 73 Celsius or maybe lower when you're running the games, then you're all set. But if you don't have a really good rig that has a really good cooling, then you're going to have an issue with this. You're going to have problems with this. And I wish that the AMD, you know, it's like this is this reoccurring dream. You know, like AMD never seems to get this right. I mean, how many times they had this issue and this problem? We don't want to see that same design anymore. We want to see something different. We don't care, honestly, do you care about the cosmetics on how the graphics card looks? I don't, because it's going to be sitting in my rig. They should do a definitely better job with the cooling. I mean, come on, AMD. You should have made the liquid cooling or thermal cooling. But you should definitely done a better job. 3 fans, this 1 fan in this plastic, it's not good enough, man. They should have done a better job with this graphics card. They should have made it look like Radeon 7. If they had made it like Radeon 7, I guarantee you, with those 3 fan blades and that aluminum, if they had made it like Radeon 7, I don't think we would have this issue. But anyway, what do you guys think? I gave you my positives and negatives in this 21 minute and some odd seconds. But you guys let me know. What do you think? Would you buy it and then work on your cooling? Or would you just stick with the NVIDIA EVGA, or would you wait? I think the better option is for you guys to wait till they release 5800, 5900 with a thermal cooling, with a much better air cooling, and then you're going to have that 2080 Ti type of performance, and you're going to have a much better deal. But if you have a great cooling in your motherboard, in your rig, and it's like a refrigerator, if you have a refrigerator type rig, then I guess you can go with this. Well, there you have it. That's all I had to say about Radeon 5700 XT. I hope this helps, and I'll see you guys next time. Take care.